again, I just want to take a chance to thank again all of those people that were involved in Bible school. It takes a lot of people to pull off stuff like that. And I am so thankful for that. First couple of years we doing Bible school, I got the opportunity to lead the singing and had the puppets going on and the ventriloquism and all of that. Now this last couple of years, Pastor Ryan has taken over that. He doesn't do the ventriloquism, but he does leading the singing and all of that. And this was our first year of actually doing the drama skit with it because we had the people to do it. That was a blessing to me. The truth that came out in that skit was, I believe, a great asset to the Bible school. I want to thank those that were participated in that. Looking forward to again next year. And for those that weren't here last week, that is just a small part of the decoration. This whole church looked like a junkyard because those that are part of that decorating, they go all out and do a tremendous job. Looking forward to seeing what next year is going to look like when it's a camping theme, and it's going to be probably trees all over this church. I brought up the idea that we could just gather up the trees people put out at Christmas time after it's done, and put them around the church, but someone told me that could be a slight fire hazard, having a bunch of dead pine trees around here. But then we could get the new church. No, I'm not, just kidding. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Insurance money is not a plan. We all perhaps have those times that we've met different people in different encounters that are interesting and impactful. Some of those occasions seem very important at the time, but end up really not very important. I remember as a child, I got an opportunity to meet a Green Bay Packer. I remember as a kid there living in Wapaka, one of the Green Bay Packers, the quarterback, Randy White, came to town to sign autographs. And I remember lining up at that laundromat, waiting for my opportunity to get in there, to get my autograph of my favorite player at the time. Why was he my favorite player at the time? Because he was in Wapaka giving autographs. And I got to get his autograph. And then I remember when he got replaced shortly thereafter by Don Makowski, because he played a better game. But anyways, being all mad, and actually when they took Randy right out, I walked out of the house and I went out and played because I wasn't going to watch that other dumb quarterback. And I was so thankful when Brett Favre took over for him because that taught him a lesson. But that major event in my life, that encounter, really didn't make a difference. Remember one other Packer that I got to meet was Bryce Popp. Showed up at McDonald's when I was in high school. And over the summer with his wife and infant child, he came up and he ordered, this is how much it sticks in my head, he ordered 3 McChicken value meals, supersized, all 3 of them. Like it's just him and his wife and a baby. Well, he took care of it just fine. I don't know if his wife ate it all or not. But I got his autograph, which I still have somewhere. I don't know where the quarterback's is. And I don't know where Bryce Popp's is. But it's somewhere in my office. But it really didn't make a difference. There are other occasions that we meet people that we really don't think much of. We have encounters that don't really seem to make a difference. We don't really think they're a big deal. But they make a lasting impact. Remember my freshman year at Pillsbury. I'm sitting in my dorm room. I'm looking out the window of my dorm. I'm on the bottom floor. So we basically are mostly under the ground. But I could see out. And there's this old guy walking around the grounds looking at the cannon. That was at Pillsbury there. It was an old military academy. And I could swear Mr. Magoo was left on campus. His glasses were thick. He had a cane. I'm making fun of a guy with a cane. But, he was walking around. I'm like, who let Mr. Magoo? I actually told that to my roommate. Who let Mr. Magoo on campus? We went to chapel, and Dr. E. Robert Jordan got up to preach. That was Mr. Magoo. And Dr. E. Robert Jordan stood up probably all of 5'5", 5'6", if that. But he was a dynamite of a man. And I remember it was that week that I surrendered to God. To God, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. No intentions of being a pastor again. Wanted to be a teacher. Pastoring is too hard. But God had other plans. Made a big difference in my life. Another man I remember was Mitch Nelson, assistant pastor in Menominee when I was a youth pastor. I saw a genuineness in his life, a care for the ministry, a care for children, and a commitment to the Lord and to the Word that was unrivaled. It's those occasions that you meet some people that make a lasting difference. In our study of the book of Genesis, we have Jacob returning home. After 20 plus years of leaving 20 plus years before this in order to get a wife. He had freed himself from Laban in the last chapter, and now we witness this chapter of 4 powerful encounters that would shape his path. So before we dive into this chapter, let's go to the Lord in prayer. Lord, thank you. Thank you for how you guide and direct in our lives, how you bring us into people, bring into our path people that will make a lasting impact. Lord, I pray that we'll be attentive to that, that we'll be looking for ways that we can learn from people, we can grow in our walk. Lord, I do pray for our church family, that you would continue to help us to grow, to be like you. Lord, I do pray for those that have the physical issues going on, that you would give them the strength, that you would give them encouragement. But Lord, again, I beg of you to pray, and I pray that you would come alongside those that are having the spiritual battles, and that you would guide us and direct us, and that we'd be obedient into the victory that is into your name. Lord, I pray all this in your precious name. Amen. The first encounter that we see in this chapter is an angelic encounter. Verse 1 starts off, and Jacob went on his way. Simple lesson right there. He went on his way after his separation from Laban, and that phrase, went on his ways, he continued to proceed as planned of going back to where he was supposed to go. God had directed him earlier in the chapter to head back home, to go back to the promised land. And we see a continued obedience here. There's not a settling in the land that the agreement with Laban had been, but it was to move forward in the path that he was to go. I'm reminded of the statement that Abraham's servant made when he was sent back to get a wife for Isaac. And he made that statement. He said, "Blessed be the God of Master Abraham, who have left me not destitute, left my master destitute of his mercy and truth. I being in the way, the Lord led me." Being in the way. It was then that the Lord will lead him to the right place, to the right time, to find the right person. Far too often we as Christians want God to show us what He would have for us, what His plan is, as we sit around and do nothing, all the while claiming that we're willing to do whatever God would have us to do. God, I'll do whatever you want me to do. What are you doing now? Far too many people sit around and they're waiting for some kind of divine interaction, divine miracle to flash and, okay, do this. Are you doing what God has called you to do today? Are you studying the Bible? Are you witnessing? Are you going into this world and sharing the gospel? Are you following? Are you doing what you are to be doing? Are you walking in alignment with the Lord daily? It has been said that not even God will steer a parked car. Are we going after Him? Are we following after Him? Here we see Jacob went on his way, was continuing in his obedience to go back, and as a result of that, he encounters a protective host. The verse goes on in verse 1, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host," and he called the name of the place Mahanaim. Remember, this is not Jacob's first meeting with an angelic host. That before going down to Laban's house, we are told in Genesis 28:12 that, and he dreamed, and behold, the ladder was set up on earth, and the top reached unto heaven, and behold, the angels of God ascending and descending on it. He knew what the angelic host looked like. This wasn't new to him. He already had an understanding about it. But there needs to be an understanding that there is security and alignment. When we align ourselves, when we're walking in alignment with God, there is no greater safety. The term there that Jacob called this place literally means a double camp. That the Lord of hosts, the angelic host, had camped around Jacob's hosts in that protective way. A comforting impact upon Jacob that he was doing the right thing. It is the truth of our memory verse. The angel of the Lord encampeth round about them that fear him and delivereth them. Again, there is no safer place than in the center of God's will. There are no guarantees in this life of prosperity or of health, yet we have a master that we know has an understanding of our sorrow and trouble. He knows, he cares, and he'll be with us each step of the way. The next encounter we see is an anticipated encounter. Verse 3. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, to his brother, unto the land of Seir, to the country of Edom, and he commanded them, saying, Thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau, thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now, and I have oxen and asses and flocks and men servants and women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord, that I might find grace in thy sight. We see in this man that had just been encouraged by the angelic host to look toward home and realize that there'd be one waiting for him that would cause concern, considering that Esau had already threatened to kill him. I don't give Jacob much, I don't see a problem with this. Jacob would have been scared, wouldn't he not? Esau had already, if you remember the storyline for those that might not remember, Jacob had earned Esau's hatred. He had tricked him with the bowl of pottage and sold the birthright. Then he had stolen the blessing by with his mother's help to come in. And now here he's coming back, and Esau was there, and he knew he was going to have to face him. What we see is perhaps Jacob saying that the blessing and the birthright did not need much, because look at the measure of success I have. To go back and tell Esau, sent the messenger, of all that I have gotten. And yet verse 5 says that grace is implored for. That unmerited favor of grace longed for. Jacob does not know if Esau has moved on from his treachery. He doesn't know if Esau is still harboring that grudge and is angry at it. The deception that Jacob had done had well deserved Esau's wrath. Perhaps the table being turned on Jacob and Laban being able to come back and I got to slow down. My brain is going faster than my mouth can go, and that's hard. Jacob's nervousness, and he doesn't know. We see that in verse 6 through 8. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau. He also cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels into 2 bands, and said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. The lack of reply and the purpose of 400 men is unknown. Think about your feelings if you were Jacob. You're coming back, and your messengers come back and say, Oh yeah, your brother, he's coming. You sent us to go talk to Esau, your brother. By the way, he's coming to meet you too. And you added detail, 400 guys are coming with him. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't be encouraged. And it says there that he was greatly distressed and afraid and distressed. I think that would be an understatement. Did Jacob know, and his guilt would know and produce the fear that Esau was going to justly come back and get him? He knew what he had done to his brother, and the promise that it would be enough to spark real concern. And in Proverbs 21, we say, The wicked flee when no man pursueth, but the righteous are as bold as lion. Jacob had no clue what was going to happen. And the wickedness of Jacob toward his brother was understandable reason for him to assume the worst, even though we will find there was actually no reason for fear. Jacob in his fear takes the only logical next step in the passage, and prayer is offered. Verse 9. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, the Lord which saith unto me, Return unto thy country and to thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. First, we see that obedience is demonstrated to the commands of God. Jacob is stating in the prayer, I'm returning at your command, and I'm trusting your deliverance. The ability to go to the Lord in prayer and say, Lord, I'm following what you have given me. I'm following what you have commanded me to do. If you want to learn how, and this prayer, this demonstration of prayer and what we can go after, is to sit there and say, Lord, I'm following what you've told me to do. Then you go to verse 10, and we see the unworthiness recognized. I am not worthy of the least of all thy mercies. And all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant, for with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. You see, Jacob offers up the prayer to the Lord to intervene in his predicament, realizing that he is unworthy of God's mercy. We stand unworthy. There is not a person here that is worthy of anything that God does not give us. We are all reliant, are we not, on his mercy? We're relying on his grace to give us what we do not deserve, and mercy not to give us what we do deserve. Verse 11, then we see the request is given, deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and smite me and the mother with the children. We see that request is given. He lays out exactly what he's asking for. He does not dance around and request or try to hedge the request with all kinds of promises and conditions. He simply asks for deliverance from the anger of Esau so that his family could continue. He goes forward and just asks flat out. And he all does this based on the promises claimed. Verse 12, and thou saidst, I will surely do thee good and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for the multitude. In this short prayer, we see the promise claimed. In essence, he is restating back to God a promise that God had given him, that it was basically his belief that the family he had been blessed with was of God's doing, and how would God, and this is, if God wipes it out, where is that blessing? He's restating it back. He's claiming a promise. After finishing the prayer, the plan is developed. Verse 13. And he lodged there that same night and took of that which came to his hand to present for Esau his brother 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats and 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milch camels with their colts 40 kine and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 foals, and he delivered them into the hand of the servants. Everyone drove by themselves, and he said unto his servants, pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, whose art thou? And whither goest thou? And whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, they be thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau. Behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the drove, saying, on this manner shall ye speak unto Esau when ye shall find him. And say ye moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us, for he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterwards I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So he went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company, and arose up that night, and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons, and passed over before Jacob. And he took them and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. I'm not sure if he was just trying to overwhelm Esau with this offering, but over 550 pieces of livestock. I don't know about you, but that might be impressive. If you see this big contingency of drove after drove coming, and 550 different pieces of livestock coming, and it was necessarily, it was an appeasement that was offered to Esau, saying, I have enough, if you will. He's trying to tell him that I have been successful, I've gained, and I have all that I need. That gives us a secret pacifier. What a change of pace in the relationship. Jacob, when they were children, kept taking from Esau. Took the birthright, took the blessing. Now Jacob is giving back to Esau, giving of the livestock, showing perhaps a change. But then we come to the third encounter, really the big encounter in the passage in verse 24. the divine encounter. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, and he wrestled with him. We see here a wrestling match between Jacob and what has been debated at great length as to who the opponent was. Some think that the opponent was a created angel known for this purpose, known as the angel of presence that you see in Isaiah 63. Others believe it was Michael, the angel of covenant, and yet others see it as a theophany in the Old Testament appearance of the divine in the flesh, meaning that Jacob was wrestling with the Lord. My personal opinion is that it was the Lord in the flesh, and that he states in verse 30 that he has seen God face to face and has lived. What is the point of the confrontation? It's a good question. I don't think the Lord was bored one night and decided to go mess with Jacob. My brother used to do that. My brother was a wrestler, and he would get bored some nights and decide to come and just mess with me. That wasn't the point. The point, I believe, was a struggle for control. The lesson would be of Jacob was constantly manipulating and going about things to figure out how he's going to achieve things on his own. And here God is intervening and through this wrestling match and through the bringing of the thigh out of, it was a matter of stating you cannot depend on yourself. You must depend on God. You must have that reliance on Him. Hosea 12 references back. Yes, he had power over the angel and prevailed. He wept. And a supplication unto him. He found him in Bethel and he spake with us. The weeping indicates a surrender to the leadership that would perhaps stop manipulating and supplanting and start being who God has called him to be. There's also the blessing that was sought after. Verse 26, and he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, lest thou bless me. One commentary states, and it is evidence that Jacob was aware of the character of him with whom he wrestled, and believing that his power, though by far superior to human, was yet limited by his promise to do him good, and he determined not to lose the golden opportunity of securing a blessing. And nothing gives God greater pleasure than to see the hearts of his people firmly adhering to him. This type of dogged determination that delivers the blessing to Jacob. I'm afraid we don't see this kind of determination today. A wrestling with God for growth in holiness and fixed determination to purge sin from our life with extreme prejudice. We are far too often quick to quit. Quick to quit. That was hard to go out. To say, well, I tried. It's good enough. Whatever. I tried Christianity. I tried to walk with God. I tried this. I tried that. And we walk away. There's not a determination that I'm going to chase after Him. And wrestle with Him. And wrestle and go after. We have a day of if you faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. And I'm afraid that if we look around and inside our own hearts and lives, we'll find out for many of us, our strength is truly small. Because we give up so quickly. Jacob had the encounter with the angels, the anticipated encounter, and the divine encounter, and the final one was a personal encounter, verse 27. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, thy name shall no more be called Jacob, but Israel, for a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and thou hast prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there. There's an exchange here that is looking for the naming of the opponent. The necessity of getting one's name really is not that big of a deal in a sporting contest today. I remember when I was in 5th grade, my brother, being a senior, was a state heavyweight champion in Christian schools in wrestling. That's why I said my brother would wake me up just to mess with me for wrestling. Unfortunately, at that time, because of my horizontal blessings, I was about his weight as a 5th grade as he was a 12th grade. And he would mess with me. But in that 5th grade year, I followed along the wrestling team, and I had 2 wrestling matches. So my record for wrestling is 1-1, by the way. The first wrestling match, I wrestled a guy, and I took him every which way, but I could not pin him. I don't know his name. The second person, I remember we went to a place, a meet that Scott was part of, and I wanted to wrestle, so they found somebody that was my weight, and I wrestled him, and he took me every which way but loose, and could not pin me. And I don't know his name either for certainty. I got suspicions of who it was, but I couldn't tell you for definity. In the Bible, though, names had meaning. Names meant something. And it is a confession of truth, that name that would be placed over the character of an individual. In the case of Jacob, the name literally meant a supplanter, a trickster. He was constantly and consistently living up to that name every step along the way and displayed the truth of it everywhere he went. And now we see the change, the blessing given by his opponent, and a new name being Israel, meaning a prince with God. He would now be going by a name that indicated a new pattern of life, a reliance upon him to provide and lead instead of deceit and treachery, that he was going to rely upon God every step from there on. The prince with God. One of the blessings, I believe, that may not be looked upon as a positive by most is the change was evidence. Charles Spurgeon makes a statement about this event. The memorial of his weakness was to be with him as long as he lived. People would ask, how came the halting gait of that princely man? And the answer would be, it was by his weakness that he won his princedom. He became Israel, the prince of God, when his thigh was put out of joint. How pleased would you and I be to go limping all our days with such a weakness as Jacob had, if we might also have the blessing that he thus won. The Apostle Paul makes it another statement, another way, talking about his infirmity in the flesh. He says, unless I should be exalted above measure through abundance of revelation that was given to me, a thorn in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to buffet me, that shall be exalted above measure. And verse 8 says, 3 times I sought the Lord to relieve me. And then verse 9 goes on, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of God may rest upon me. Jacob is given that constant reminder of his night wrestling with the angel or with the Lord. That constant reminder. The chapter concludes then with the recognition of the blessing and escaping with his life. Verse 30, and Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And he passed over Peniel, and the sun arose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. Therefore the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which was upon the hollow of the thigh unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh, and the sinew shrank. Friends, what is it going to take for us, or some of us, to get the point of resting in his care, to pursue him with a determination to make our name fit? What is our name? I mean, yes, I'm not talking Eric or Jeremy or Joe or the Josh or Jack. The 3 J's there. 4th, you add Jeremy to it. Our name of Christian. What does that mean? It means little Christ. Do we live up to that name? Let's pray. Lord, thank you again for your word. Thank you for this example you give in your word about one that you use, Lord. Lord, I'm so thankful in your word that you give us the faults, you give us the problems, that we see that this was a fault-filled person that you used for your glory and honor. Lord, I pray for each one of us that we would operate in a manner that goes after you in each and every way. Lord, I thank you and praise you in your precious name. Amen.